I welcome our first public comment.
Hello, board. I'm Gary Walsh with Save Our Beaches SC. Many of you represent cities and supervisory districts that you're supposed to represent the people. Well, understanding all this, what we'd like to bring up is the recent OCTA proposal to spend $200 million on what they're calling mitigation down in the San Clemente area. And in its essence, I think you all know, they want to drop $190 million actually of riprap along these beaches, which we contend will destroy these beaches and eliminate them. Now, many of you have children, and I am going to present a little situation to you. What if your child came to you and said, I want to get a tattoo? You would kind of say, well, and what they said, I want to get a facial tattoo. I think you'd pretty much say, I don't think we should do that, right? Well, throwing that riprap down in the proposal by OCTA is the environmental equivalent of a facial tattoo, which Jimmy Buffett once said was a temporarily, permanently bad idea, right? You don't want to get these kind of things, and we don't want to ruin our beaches because we can't fix them back up. Now, Save Our Beaches has presented numerous times, and there's been speakers in here that have presented that riprap does exacerbate sand erosion. But confoundingly, the OCTA staff has repeatedly said they don't believe it. They simply don't believe it. They've offered no evidence of the counter of that, although we've offered evidence that it does. But they just say they don't believe it. And it's somewhat equivalent to like the tobacco companies saying, well, we don't think cigarettes cause health problems. It's like, well, who are you going to believe, right? The scientist or not? Or the executives. Often, when we bring up the subject of sand, those ETA staff will say, well, we're studying it. Well, they've been studying it for years. So what's their studies present? What are they saying? I think they're playing you off a little bit here, because not only do they say they're studying it, but then when we bring up specific things about it, they say, well, it's the grain of sand. And we say, well, wait a second. And then they'll say, oh, well, it's too difficult, or we can't get the permits and stuff. Well, I'd like to present that Supervisor Foley down in Capel Beach, from conception to completion, put together an entire sand project within a year. So maybe you guys could get her staff or contact her staff and find out how she did that. So thank you. We want to get staff. We want to have comments from all of you. Thank you.
All right, next speaker, please.
Dr. Susie Whitelaw with Save Our Beaches San Clemente. First, I would like to thank Supervisor Foley for so vigorously defending our beaches. Last week, Dr. Brett Sanders, an expert in coastal erosion, came to tell you that this proposed revetment would accelerate erosion and the eventual loss of this beach. This is generally accepted science, and this public agency must rely upon experts, not the personal opinion of staff members. Staff indicated that rock had been there for 100 years without affecting the beach until recently. That's because there was 200 feet of sand, which prevented the direct interaction of the waves with the rock. Over time, the beach gradually narrowed through the lack of sand supply, for which the tracks are also partly responsible, until in 2014, the waves generated by Hurricane Marie narrowed it to the critical narrowness where the waves did begin interacting with the rocks. Now, when waves roll up onto sand, they gradually lose their energy over a length of beach. When waves crash against rocks, they lose their energy instantaneously, creating tremendous amount of energy loss, turbulence, scour, and a reflected wave that carries that sand then back offshore. The fault is not the waves. The fault is the presence of the rocks. The solution is to reestablish the wide sandy beach in front of the rocks. Your engineering drawings show a revetment extending 50 feet out on a beach with less than 50 feet of sand. This would mean an immediate situation with waves crashing against the rock with no intervening sand. That's what you did under a real emergency at Cypress Shores. How could you possibly contemplate doing that again when there is no real emergency? You've had 3 years to think about a better solution, and yet here it is again, rocks. Your staff indicated that sand replenishment was a controversial subject. It is not. Sand replenishment is the restoration of what is becoming a critically endangered habitat. Did you notice which beaches you're not proposing rocks? The central beaches where the city and its partners will spend $200 million to maintain a wide sandy beach that will protect your tracks for the next 50 years with no contribution from OCTA. Your own engineering evaluations indicated that water on the landward side of the tracks could potentially cause liquefaction. Liquefaction is equally likely if seawater intrudes from the seaward side. Your rocks will not keep out the water. You need a wide sandy beach to keep the ocean away from your tracks. This plan is a brutal engineering solution. It's ludicrous that a public agency would consider using our taxpayer dollars to destroy a public beach. However, if you work with our community to protect both the tracks and the beach, you will have banked mitigation credits for several decades worth of adverse environmental impacts, and you will have our entire community cheering you on. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Sean Griffin.
Hello, my name is Lisa Gant, and I'm here to support Save Our Beaches San Clemente. OCTA is charged with protecting the railway. Everyone understands that. What is harder to understand is why OCTA needs to have it repeatedly explained that armoring our beaches high and wide with tons of boulders in the manner proposed only worsens erosion. The California Coastal Commission meets most requests for coastal armoring with extreme resistance. Through emergency permitting, the railway gets away with it. What is hard to understand is why the railroad refuses to collaborate on bringing in sand and sand retention to our beaches. This would benefit the beaches as well as the rail line. It is also quite possible that short-term reactions like boulder dropping could destroy our beaches and prevent long-term solutions. Another thing that is hard to understand is how a railroad takes precedence over an entire city, an entire community. San Clemente is a community that is centered around its beaches, both economically and recreationally. It's infuriating to hear that you can destroy a beach in San Clemente, then pay mitigation impact fees after the fact that may or may not be used in an effort to restore the mess you leave at our beaches. This was stated quite matter-of-factly by Mr. Fu in his presentation to the board on March 11th. He wasn't quite sure whether you could ruin our beach and walk away by just paying a dollar amount, or if OCTA would have to actually mitigate the situation where the actual destruction takes place, if that were even possible. It amazes me this can be stated so casually as if destruction of a precious resource can be measured in fees and penalties called mitigation fees. There are opportunities for working with San Clemente on mutually beneficial solutions. The fact is, tax money flows faster to the railroad than it does to our beaches. San Clemente wants to protect our beaches. Our beaches need immediate action. Our beaches need sand replenishment and sand retention. Please do not desecrate our beach with boulders again. This callous, environmentally irresponsible action will destroy our beaches. We cannot accept prioritizing the railroad at the cost of devastating San Clemente. This is too high a cost. By the way, those stakeholders you are always saying you are communicating with, the stakeholders I know are people. Those people make up a community. The community in San Clemente, the people there love their beaches. They need more communication with OCTA. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning.
Good morning. Tony Nelson, founder of Capo Cares. I attended your listening session last Wednesday, but I wonder if anyone's actually hearing us. The Coastal Rail Study initial assessment appears to have been developed without listening to a single coastal advocate or concerned citizen. It refers to key stakeholders, but obviously that doesn't include us. If you had heard us, you wouldn't be trying to circumvent CEQA and proper coastal permitting, critical steps for a project costing taxpayers $200 million. Mandy Sackett of Surfrider was there, and she called this offensive, and it is. Coastal protections were established to ensure that public access to our beautiful beaches is safeguarded for future generations. What will you tell your grandkids and mine when our iconic beaches are covered in boulders and lined with ugly walls? Page 32 of the report clearly outlines your environmental strategy. It's actually called that. It states that environmental review can be avoided by claiming emergency repairs for services necessary for the public health, safety, and welfare. First, your so-called emergency has been going on since 2021. How can you continue to call it an emergency? This is your new normal on our sand-starved coast. Secondly, it is well known that physical, emotional, and spiritual health is enhanced by recreation and visits to beaches. Visits to boulders, not so much. And public safety is actually harmed by climbing over piles of boulders to find an inch of sand. Riprap has literally killed a popular beach at Cypress Shores. Must we kill more? Although Dr. Sanders was cut off last week before he could finish, his message was clear. Science has unequivocally proven that armoring exacerbates erosion and will worsen the very situation that you're trying to fix, making coastal rail even less safe. Sand is the only real remedy for our coast. In July of 2022, Surfrider and Metrolink together seated an average of less than 5,000 riders per day in this coastal segment. That was your best month in 2.5 years. Do you really want to spend $200 million and destroy 7 miles of beaches to transport a fraction of 1% of Orange County's population? The public is starting to understand that our welfare is at stake. You have contemplated rail relocation since 1993, and now you want 30 more years on a crumbling coast at great cost in both dollars and environmental damage. When it comes to a choice between trains and beaches, we will be fighting for our beaches. I hope you will too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we talk to San Clemente, the city manager, the mayor, everybody on the council almost every day. So we're very connected in terms of collaborating. And on that note, I did have a meeting last Friday with Congressman Levin, and we talked about some of the permitting issues, because it's my understanding that the permitting issue is maybe one of the obstacles that we need to overcome in order to get more sand more quickly on the beaches. So his staff has agreed to reach out to the Army Corps and to the Coastal Commission to help us to expedite permitting for sand specifically, so that we don't have that obstacle. And I will be checking back with them next week. And you can be sure that we'll be working on that every week, because we need more sand on our beaches. I agree with everything that the speakers have said, and I'll just keep using my loud voice to express that. But also thank you for our team that was out at the Nowruz Festival. And
JP and any other director's comments? Yes, I see Director Dimitru.
Real quickly, just for staff, based off the comments and the emails we've been getting in reference to the sand at San Clemente, maybe we can get, especially for myself and maybe some of our newer members, how and why it would be the responsibility of us to provide a beach. Maybe kind of bring back forward what the history has been, and kind of get more detailed of what this is, because I can't really link how us as a transportation agency, except for the rail, would be responsible to replenish beach erosion. So really like maybe a quick hour or half hour sometime in the near future, just to bring it up to date so we can be informed. So when folks come forward, that we can look at this more through their eyes and kind of get an idea. And if it's something that we're responsible for and we need to do something, and then it's to really actually move forward with a plan rather than talking about it and actually do something. And if it's not ours, is communicate that clearly of the agencies that should be involved and then advocate with those agencies for that replenishment rather than just talking about it every week. Because I'd rather see something done than not. And if we can be an advocate, then that's what we should do. And I'd really appreciate that opportunity.
All right, thank you, Director Dimitro. And the final director's report, Director Foley.
Just to follow up, so part of the reason why there's a nexus is because the boulders, the riprap is actually what's causing the beaches to erode, and that's the nexus. You can't put down that mitigation because then it erodes the beaches. We are forming a regional collaborative, which OCTA will be invited to be a member of, and we're hoping that that will bring all what are currently silos together so we can all work together on a plan for sand replenishment. I think under normal circumstances, if the railroad system wasn't dropping the boulders there, it might only be the county or the state or the cities responsible for the beaches. But there is a direct nexus between the boulders being dropped there and the erosion.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further